He's called
Okay,
iPhone.
I'm starting the YouTube.
Close that email.
Okay, we're live. Can we mute
Okay.
everybody, Randy?
Huh?
Can we mute everybody?
No, it's a Zoom link.
I'm
Nancy,
sorry.
it's not, all it says is Zoom. Right there.
Oh, you didn't hit,
No, don't mind me. I was looking at the YouTube.
nobody's muted except Bruce.
No,
It's probably as it should be.
everybody's muted.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to Hammond North. It's October 27th, 6:04 p.m. We'll do the roll call. Chris Conti,
Here.
Randy Vaughn,
Here.
Tracy Smiley,
Here.
Dan Welch,
Here.
Tim Fritz.
Here.
And Tom Deeds is traveling and he won't be on the phone. And Greg is here also. So call the meeting to order. So we have two orders of business today. One is the landmark negotiations for the remainder of our insurance money for the building. And the other one, recommendations from the buyers as to who we're going to recommend and vote on to purchase the building. So the first order on landmark, as everybody knows, is probably well aware, we have $55 million in insurance for the building. We've been paid about 44.5, and we've been in negotiations with Landmark to try to get the remainder of the money. Basically, through negotiations, we're at a point of $52.5 million minus the 250,000 for deductible that they'll pay that, which amounts to a payout of $8,019,900. There were various negotiations back and forth. As most people probably know, we were approaching the tolling agreement deadline. We brought Isaac in on those negotiations. Isaac, why don't you fill us in on what the agreement says?
At this point, essentially the monetary amount is what you mentioned, and all we're doing is we're giving them a release. They had wanted an indemnification. We objected to that. They agreed to that. They had one confidentiality as to all the homeowners. We objected to that. They agreed to get rid of that. So we're left at pretty much getting a payment in exchange for a release of further claims.
So we basically have to sign the agreement before the tolling agreement runs out. So are there any comments from the board members?
I think we want to talk about what the negotiations the last month or two have been like. Right? A couple of people are going to make some comments there.
Sure. I mean, they were much lower than we were, not getting them above 50 at all. We were well under that. I think at the last go around, they offered around 49, and the board basically came back and said, unless you can get to 52.5, we're not going to do it. And we're going to have to file a lawsuit. In reviewing the lawsuit, understanding that they are going to try to raise defenses to paying it, I think the board determined that the best course of action was to try to pursue the 52.5. And I can't say that I disagree due to the timing, the cost of the litigation, and the fact that they were trying to raise defenses to the claims based on the previous fire. There was an issue that they have mentioned that never really got brought up, which is we had the wrong named insured on the policy, that they have since foregone that issue. That's part of the settlement. So overall, I think it's a good settlement, but the board has to want to approve it and move forward with it.
Any other comments from any board members?
Just that it's been an ongoing battle, and we finally reached a better agreement than what was proposed. And I commend the work of everyone on this board and to Isaac for getting us across the finish line. This has been going on for such a long time that we are now finally to the end and have pushed them to a better agreement than what they originally offered. So it was a lot of tough work. So I think we all can appreciate that.
Would you like a
You-
motion, John, to approve
Exactly
it?
what I was gonna say.
Okay,
Sure.
I'll move that we, as a board, approve the landmark agreement that we've all been circulating. And that I think might be on our, no, that's not on our website.
And Tim, that's a second?
Yes.
And Tim seconds it. Any discussion about the motion? I think it's only fair if we open up, any of the owners have any, raise your electronic hand. We not want to get into a lengthy debate about it, but if owners have any comments on that, raise your electronic hand. Michelle?
She's muted. I don't know, yeah.
No, she's not.
Board for the hard work you've done to achieve this. I think as an owner, I was taken aback when Landmark offered 3.5, I think, million. And I was under no illusions that we were going to get the full amount. Again, I'd like to ask the board to please consider turning the chat off. There is a snarky comment already in there because I raised my hand saying, "Oh no, please." This type of rhetoric in the chat is not helpful. So I urge the board to turn the chat off. As I have said previously, you generously allow us to raise our hands and respond. The chat is not necessary right now, or please censor the people who are being abusive on the chat. Thank you.
That is, Michelle, that is our intention. We will not be addressing any of those derogatory comments.
Will you be
And I've already-
censoring or fining the people who are making them? Because I'm considering it harassment at this point.
Well, I already sent a message to the individual, and I believe we can disable an individual or remove them from the meeting if it
I
continues.
appreciate that. That would be helpful, and I would feel better about listening and participating.
Anybody else want to make a comment? Again, about the landmark. Okay, no other comments, then we'll call to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the agreement as stated? Okay, so 6 for it, and out of 6 members present. Okay, so now we'll move on to the buyers, what's going on trying to sell the building. So we got some bids in the very beginning. We called an M&M to do a national search. We did that. We have one offer also from Hammond House. And I'd like Jordan to review what the process was about getting the bids and the best and final offer and his recommendation.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. We'll keep it tight. I'll be on for the length of the call. My business partner, Nick Andrews, is in here too to answer any questions you might have. But as John said, we'll run through what our process was and where we sit today. Just to remind everybody, we were selected as your fiduciary advisor to represent ownership, not just as your listing agent. Our role in this is to help maximize value, execute a full marketing process, and select a buyer who can and will close. By year end, our team is going to surpass roughly $2 billion in total transactions, which are all multifamily. In those deals, we're not just bringing offers, we're specializing in identifying the right buyer and driving that buyer to execution of a closing. With all that, when we initially launched Hammond North, it generated tremendous momentum and broad-based interest from a large investor community. We received 12 qualified offers through our initial call for offers process from a diverse pool of national, regional, and local buyers. It included institutional investors, experienced regional developers, and high net worth value add operators. The volume of interest created a highly competitive environment that validated our initial aggressive pricing guidance, which we were targeting as close to $20 million as possible. Importantly, that's what our process at Marcus & Millichap does. It's designed and cultivated to help curate maximum exposure across all buyer types and geographies, while also driving real-time feedback and pricing discovery through a controlled process. Through that process, as I mentioned, we received 12 offers. We identified and we advanced 5 of those highly qualified groups into a best and final round. Based on market guidance, pricing was adjusted to $16 million to support competitiveness while keeping buyers engaged through that best and final process. But it's important to note that most of the non-finalist offers that we had clustered in the $11 to $13 million realm. Of the buyers that we took to a best and final, all of those buyers owned over 1,000 units, and they've all executed on larger and more complex projects than Hammond North. They all have deep experience in Cincinnati with city officials, permitting, large-scale renovations, and every one of those groups took the time and the cost risk to fully vet the asset, demonstrating serious intent and capacity to perform, not limited to just flying in from various cities to perform extensive on-site tours. Once we took those 5 buyers to a best and final scenario, most of the groups uncovered a set of plans from 2024 that were stamped renovation plans stamped by the city. Those plans added significant scope and cost that weren't initially underwritten in the call for offers. A lot of the groups defer to that level of diligence until they're serious finalists due to cost and the time that's involved. We had to enact a 10-day extension to allow the buyers to pull those plans, rework their budgets with architects, contractors, and internal committees, and confirm that there is no ability to grandfather the asset and that full compliance is going to be required. Following that 10-day extension and advanced due diligence, all of the groups reduced their offers due to the true budget exposure. One group rose to the top through that process, which was Venture Communities, who remains fully engaged, funded, and ready to move forward. They've pulled the plans, they've secured internal approvals, and they've confirmed their proof of funds. Their offer expects real market with full renovation obligations priced in, and they're ready to execute today. The final pricing reflects the real-world scope and the market-tested feedback that we found, not based on wishful thinking or underwritten shortcuts, and no group assumed that the building would be exempt from full compliance through that process. Venture rose to the top because of their pricing, but also because of their proven track record and they're institutionally backed in the city. They've completed on $130 million in transactions over the last 24 months alone. Almost all of those are heavy value-add assets, and 3 of those are $28 to $32 million acquisitions in the last 2 years. Ventures sort of thrives in that value-add acquisition, and they've built their business on buying assets that are in need of repositioning. They've provided proof of funds documentation, confirmed their equity and their debt structure, and they've got no internal delays to execution. They're ready to enter contract and push toward a closing table in a timely manner. Through that process, they have unveiled themselves as the best buyer for the asset. And through that process, we canvassed the entire market. We tested pricing. We left no stone unturned. We guided as aggressively as we could through this process to find the best buyer. We drove those buyers extremely hard. And while final pricing is below our initial early targets, it's grounded in reality and it's based on confirmed construction scopes that have been vetted time and time again. So we're now left with a qualified, vetted buyer who's ready, willing, and able to close, and that's the most valuable outcome that we can expect. So John, based on that, I'll turn it back to you, and then I stand here for questions. Nick and I both do, if anybody has any questions throughout that process.
Okay, one detail, however, could you mention what the final offer from Venture was?
$13.5 million.
Thank you. So I'd like to remind everybody of what the criteria that we announced publicly at a board meeting about a month and a half ago were about how we would make the decision. Certainly, obviously, price is one. There's also earnest money, the buyer's financial needs, proof of funds, length of time and amount needed to finance, our requirement that all owners must consent to the sale, which we're aware of, buyer's acceptance of this contingency, due diligence period, how long, other contingency, buyer's ability to terminate deal, who pays the title search, closing costs, how long until, and lastly, assurance of moving through a clean and final resolution and qualification of the buyer, past experience, success, reputation, and licensing. So those are the criteria we're looking for. And beyond the buyers, what we have and M&M's recommendation of venture, we also have Hammond House, who has a bid in for 15 million. So that is the situation we're at, and that was the recommendation of M&M. There are also, I should say, a couple of things that came out. I would emphasize in terms of the evaluation criteria, which was really the financial needs of proving that the finance is there. There's a track record of a company that has in the past raised that money. Also, the qualifications of being able to do this type of construction on a large building, 18-story, 180-unit building. And those were factors that were significant in making a determination. So with that, I'd ask if there are any other members of the board who want to comment on this before we move on to motions. Nobody. Okay.
I think, is it Mary raising their hand?
Yeah.
Mary Merriman?
Yeah, I'll get to Mary in a minute. Jan, you raise your hand?
So it's been a long haul. It still is a long haul. And I know everyone is tired of it and wishes it were better, it wishes it were more money. But at the end of the day, this seems like a very sure thing. And I know, I mean, you know, it was delayed announcing it. We've discussed it backwards, forwards, every which way we can. This is, I think, the board and you know, the staff's and Jordan's and Isaac's best effort and our recommendation. It's a chance to reclaim our lives and move on.
Jordan, did they give you an idea of the due diligence period?
It's 60 days due diligence with a 60-day close.
So 100 total.
Which I
Only
believe
20.
120.
that's a shorter period than many other buyers.
Yes.
Tim, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I want to say is that we've gone through years of not having very much control of this project through a variety of issues. Excuse me. We are now at the point where we can start to gain some control of the outcome of this project. And it's very important for us to move forward and start to gain that control that for the last 2.5 years, for a variety of reasons, we've had no control over the situation. And now we're to the point where we have an insurance settlement, we have a firm offer, we have the finances that Tracy has put together in terms of what the distributions will be. So this is a point in time where we can start to control our destiny.
Randy, your hand up?
Yeah, well, I was just going to reiterate what Jordan had said. In that extended 10-day period, the investors looked at the requirements that the city was going to impose on the building, and that is why they all lowered their offer. They realized that was going to be expensive to do, and so that's why we're now at the 3.5 million.
13.
13.5.
13.5. Yeah, 13. Yeah, what's 10 million? Okay, yeah, 13.5 million. Yeah, we do have some chat questions and other things, but yeah.
Any other members of the board want to comment?
Jordan, can you do or talk to like a comparison of the other higher offers and what your or Isaac and what your thoughts were around choosing Venture as the best viable offer for Hammond?
Yeah, so the other offers, nobody outpaced 13.5 million from a pricing standpoint. When we came back through the best and final, the best and finalists were all roughly between 12 and 13 million, and Venture was about $500,000 more than the other best and finalists. All of the offers had between 45 and 90 days of due diligence, and most of those had 120 to 150 day closings. So Venture was a little bit tighter on their closing timeline, as well as the strongest price of the best and finalists. They also have some of the most extensive track record over the last 24 months. While all of the buyers were extremely strong, Venture has transacted on the most deals over the last 24 months across all the best and finalists.
Thank you.
So just in terms of ground rules for the meeting as we proceed, we really have only these two items on the agenda for the special meeting. So we're not going to get into the question of the lawsuits, which we all painfully know that we have to resolve in order for the proceeds of a sale to get to the owners. The other one is that I would say this, there is a commission fee, I think around 250,000, which I believe NM will get, which is a price, and that is not for Hammond House. There is no commission fee for that, and it's a factor the board did take into account.
So we have new numbers. Is this a time maybe to?
I think that's a good point. Yes. Maybe Tracy can share the payout numbers.
Hey, Randy, you want to pull that up?
And while
Yeah,
it's being pulled up, I should say that this PDF, it has already been posted on the Hammond North website.
okay, it's on the screen, I believe, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 1 second. All right. So you guys you've seen this before where previously I had shared what the owner payout would be for immediate direct sale versus owner payout for partition. So first I'm going to go through the immediate sale. We have updated the reserve amounts from our September financials for each scenario, which is approximately, can someone mute? Is everyone muted? Which is approximately $8 million. We have also updated the landmark insurance remaining payout to the $8,019,891 that John spoke to a little bit earlier. Included in that is the seal recovery fee of 7.5%. And so the total reserves funding for each one of these scenarios is about $15.5 million. So that is the cash that we have in reserves minus the seal recovery payout fee. For the building proceeds, I put in an estimate of 13 million, 14 million, and 15 million, just as to gauge and let you guys know what those payouts look like. As Jordan mentioned, you know, there's an offer that came in at 13.5. There were some less than that. I know we talked about Hammond House was 15, but I just gave a scenario of what those offers look like and what those payouts would be to each owner. For the commission, we just talked about the payout of 250,000. I also include closing costs in here. So it's just the estimate. It may be lower than this, but I want to estimate out approximately a million or so for closing costs just in case. So it is a very conservative number. In scenario one of $13 million, the total payout to owners, which include the reserve fund, the insurance payout from Landmark, as well as the building sale proceeds of the $13 million, would be approximately $27,554,000. As you can see below, the calculation based upon percent of ownership for each type of bedroom unit is 1 bedroom, 57,000, 2 bedroom, 132,000, 3 bedroom, 195,000, and penthouse of 278,000. You will see in scenarios 2 and 3 the same calculation based upon the change of the building's sale proceeds and the number of unit type payouts as well in scenario 2 and 3. Now, we have discussed for those who are delinquent, the delinquency amounts for their HOA fees will be deducted from your sales proceeds and reallocated. Greg, did you have a question? Okay, I saw your Zoom light up. All right, so for the owner payout for partition, the scenarios we have here is if it takes us 1 year to go through the partition action, 2 years, and 3 years. Uh-oh. There we go. So from the reserve, I carried over the reserve amounts of $8,176,535. However, I did reduce that amount by $600,000 for our insurance premiums we would have to pay each year. For Landmark, I also updated those numbers compared to the direct sale of the same $8,019,891. And the seal recovery fee for that payout is similar to the direct sale. So you'll see the total reserve amount starts at $15,994,000, but it starts to decrease over time due to every year we have to pay insurance for the building. The building sales proceeds for the partition, I estimated a sales proceed of $11 million for 1 year, $10 million for 2 years, and $9 million if it takes us 3 years. The reason I did that is because I reduced each year that it takes approximately $1 million due to the depreciable value that would occur if we go to auction. The commission and closing costs, I also put the same 8% amount, 8% in here for each one of those sales, which is approximately $880,000 if it takes us a year, $800,000 if it takes us 2 years, and $720,000 if it takes us 3. That is based upon the percentage of the sale. There are also legal and court costs associated with this, and it's compounded over time. So in year 1, I've estimated approximately $220,000. Year 2 and year 3 will actually compound over time. As we talked about in the last board meeting, I share with you what the legal costs were for just that 1 month that we discussed. And so the expectations, those costs will continue to occur. On the next line item is the HOA annual fees compounded over time. So when we talk about, us retaining the building, obviously in year 1, our budget for HOA fees is $992,000. Year 2, we would have paid $1.9 million. And by year 3, we would have paid $2.9 million over the 3-year period, the longer it takes to actually go through the partition action. The result of that is if it takes us a year, we would actually have a payout of $23,902,000, which is significantly less than if we did a direct sale with the low base of $13 million. You can see beneath that a 1-bedroom payout would be approximately $50,000, 2-bedroom $114,000, 3-bedroom $169,000, and penthouse $241,000. As you can see over time, those amounts continue to dwindle the longer it takes to sell the building. Again, I mentioned before that the payout is based on the percent of ownership and that delinquency amounts will be reduced from those specific owner sales proceeds and reallocated. I will say that as we continue to operate and building over a period of time or as long as it takes, the delinquencies will continue to rise. In the last financial report, I reported that the delinquency report was approximately $702,000, and I've estimated 10% growth year over year. If we run out of funds for the delinquency amounts and the ability to operate the building, we will start to dip into the reserve accounts. Those reserve accounts are listed above. The goal is not to spend those reserve accounts over time, but we would have to either do that or you have a special assessment to be issued to continue to operate the building based upon the amount of delinquencies we see and the growth we see every single month. So I think using the 10% growth rate is conservative. The last month over month growth was approximately 650,000 to 700,000. And so the expectation is probably more around 20% growth over time. So, Randy, your screen changed a little bit.
It did?
Yes, if you could scroll down just a tad. Oop, too much. More, go back up. There we go. Back up a little more. Scroll back up a little more, Randy.
Lost my mouse. Here we go.
Okay, there we go. So the reason I'm sharing this is basically to tell the story around the impact of the direct sale versus partition payout. Obviously, the direct sale is the not only faster way to get away from up under the situation that we're all are in. And Jordan just mentioned that, you know, we have some offers that can proceed very quickly. We've gone out and done the national search like a lot of the owners requested. And now that we have that information back, I know there are some owners who are saying they would actually sign the consent to sale once we've done that, and we have done that. What I'm representing here is the disconnect between how much money will go into each owner's pocket per each one of these scenarios. And as you can see, it is significantly less than what we receive for direct sale. As I mentioned, the reserves will begin to be depleted year over year. We will continue to have to pay our insurance premiums year over year. The actual value of the building will tend to devalue over time, especially if the building has to go to auction. And in the partition action, going to auction means best offer on the table. So the projection of losing value $1 million could be even more. Then we have to continue to incur legal costs and court costs associated with the partition. And then obviously month over month, we're continuing to have to pay HOA fees for a unit we are no longer inhabiting. So as John mentioned, this is out on the site, and I would encourage all the owners to go out there, look at this document. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to one of the board members. But I really do encourage each owner to revisit the thought of, you know, wanting to sign the consent to sale if you have not already done that. As I mentioned before, the board has done a fantastic job, and I'm not even speaking of myself, a fantastic job of, you know, working with insurance. You know, kudos to Isaac as well on getting the most money back from Landmark, and also, you know, working with Jordan to get the best deal possible for all owners. As Jan mentioned, this is a way to get away from up under a lot of the stress and bankruptcy this is causing a lot of the owners, and then we can all move on with the next chapter in our lives.
Thanks very much, Tracy. Randy?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for doing this, Tracy. I think it does make it clear that there's a definite advantage to the direct sale over the partition. I think, honestly, in the partition, you've been a little bit optimistic on what we can expect to get for the building. You've got it ranging from 11 million down to 9 million. On a sheriff's auction, I don't think we'll get 9 million. It'll be a vacant building. It'll have sat vacant for a year or two at least. Yeah, I think we'd be very lucky to get between 9 and 11 million. I wouldn't be surprised if we get 6, 7 million in that range. But anyway.
Yeah,
That
so
is true. That is true, Randy, especially with us, you know, losing our ability to continue to operate this building over time. Once that condemned sign goes on the building, you're absolutely right. You know, we are going to go from anywhere between 9 and 5 million, right? So it's at that point, it's going to be best offer, which could be anything. So I was really conservative. I can go back and do a version of a little more, you know, I won't call it realistic version of this, but we don't know what we don't know right now. I started at 11 million because I know that's what we had on the consent to sell form, but you're absolutely right that those amounts would be much less over time.
Thank you very much, Tracy. In order to be able to see, for me to see people, maybe we can drop the sharing, stop the sharing now. We can always, if there's a question, we can pull that up again. But as I said, it's on the website. So before we turn to the owners, are there any other board members who want to comment on the spreadsheet and the payout? Jan?
So this isn't exactly on that spreadsheet and payout, but there are some questions coming up about the numbers who haven't yet signed and that kind of thing. I will report on that a little later in the meeting. So I know it's important and we'll talk.
Yeah,
about it.
it's best we get through this, yes.
Yeah, we've got.
And basically try to keep the discussion of these two items.
Right.
Anybody else from the board? Okay.
The last thing I will say, John, is I would like for the owners to understand that these offers will not be around forever. Obviously they have come to us with the intent on closing, and doing all the financial reporting and everything. We're closing, it's 120 days. So the expectation is really tight and they won't be around forever. And I would encourage everyone to, do the right thing and ensure that all of the owners actually get something tangible from the units that they work so hard to live in and occupy. It's a blow to everyone, but this is the best possible outcome.
Tim?
Greg, there's a question on chat about, are the reserve funds in an interest-bearing account? Can you address that?
I'm sorry,
Greg?
say that again.
There's a question on the chat that says, are the reserve funds in an interest-bearing account?
Greg, do you have the answer to that one?
Yes, the current balance is about 329,000. You're averaging about 24,000 a month in interest off the current balance.
Greg, can you estimate how much of the reserve, 8 to 9 million, would be in interest-bearing accounts?
Well, you would probably double what you're doing right now. So that would probably, if all things remain constant, somewhere around 48 to 50,000 a month on that balance until you start your payouts.
Or until we start having to dip into it to actually operate the building and pay insurance.
Yes, that's correct.
Other questions of the board members? All right, we'll turn over the owners. Usually, we limit comments to 2-3 minutes. Mike, in respect of your offer and all the discussions had with you, we'll extend that to 5 minutes, but I'd like you to keep it to 5 minutes.
That's not 5 minutes. I just don't understand why nobody contacted me. I contacted you, offered 15 million, asked for a letter of intent to be signed or an offer, provide the rest of the financing. So I'm kind of wondering why you're letting $1.5 million walk out the door. So I'm not sure.
There's an echo. I'm sorry, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you have somebody else on the line.
Yeah, it's my wife's. She's got it on.
Okay.
She's turned it off. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm just, we've arranged for $50 million in financing, but yet you take an offer for 13.4. I'm wondering about fiduciary responsibilities and things along those lines. But, so be it. But I also offer to take the building over immediately, which will keep it grandfathered. If you guys lose grandfathering during this partition process, the building will be worth nothing. So I think personally that you're making some bad choices.
Yeah, from a legal perspective, the idea of grandfathering is not going to work. The city has made clear they're not going to accept that at this point.
Not the conversations I've had with them.
Okay,
That's
well,
not true.
we've had a number of people do due diligence, interact with the city, and the city has told every single one of them they're not going to allow it to be grandfathered.
Well, John,
Mike, can I just hang on a second, Mike? Randy had his hand up. Go ahead, Randy.
I was going to let them have their discussion and then if you want, but I can, Yeah, you mentioned fiduciary duty, and that is what we have in mind. Fiduciary duty doesn't only mean money. It means doing what's best for the organization.
Agreed.
And if you look at the history, we have met with you and had many times, several times, and had many, many emails back and forth. We have asked for evidence of funding for you to purchase the building. We have never received that. You did send us a letter that you received from 10th Street Ventures, which is a group down in Atlanta, and they've offered 18 million, but that's for the rebuilding of the building. It is not for the purchase. They made that clear. So we still don't see the purchase money. Your offer is based on the assumptions that 25% of the owners will return their profits from the sale to you to have their units repaired. That's the gamble. I don't know if 25 million people or 25% of the people are going to do that.
That offer,
We have to be sure. You have asked, you wanted to hurry this through so that the occupants would remain in the building and allow for a grandfathering for code issues. Well, as Isaac has just told you, that isn't going to happen. Art Dahlberg has already told our other investors that no, the building has to be brought up more or less to modern code and not left in the 1965 state. You also asked us at one point, I know you've dropped this, but at one point in your offer, you asked for Landmark's remaining funds. There was still $11 million out at that point, and you asked to have possession of that. So you were using these things to defray your costs. And our other investors have dropped their original offers because they have learned about the grandfathering issue that is happened. And so I say all that to say that it has led us to be very uncertain as to whether you will be able to bring this through to a clean and final resolution. Whereas reading Venture's offer, looking at their finances that they have readily provided us, I think the board believes that that will move very smoothly without any, as they call it in the industry, without any hair on the offer. It's just a very smooth sale of the building. And we feel that that is part of our fiduciary duty, not just to grab all the money that we can grab, but to make sure that we grab it. Because what happens if we go through 3 or 4 months, we get down to where we're about to close, and in your contract, there are still options for you to get out of the deal. And what if that happens? We've wasted 3 months, 4 months. Then we have to go back on the market again to try to sell it. And Jordan, you can speak to this. If we go back to the bridesmaids, so to speak, and ask them, now will you buy the building? They're likely to have moved on and not be interested anymore. And so that's our thinking. And Jordan, Isaac, if either one of you want to add to that or tell me I'm wrong, go ahead.
So Mike,
Nope,
I don't think
Isaac,
we
you're on
want to,
mute. Isaac's talking on mute.
No, he's not. Shouldn't be.
I can hear him.
no,
Yeah,
it's not me.
nothing you said is incorrect. I mean, we have not seen the financials to support the purchase. We still have a bunch of contingencies in the last offer that we had that would make this less attractive just based on the contract than the one that we are anticipating getting from the new offer. And they are offering us a very short, clean transaction if it goes through. Your contract is contingent on it being grandfathered. And as I said, our understanding is there is no way that's going to happen.
Well,
Mike.
I haven't had any dialogue with you in particular till now. I have asked for the letter of intent to be signed and I can prove these things. But, you guys are missing an opportunity. I'll move on. I think it's, as an owner, I'm a little let down by your, and then secondly, has the offer been accepted yet? Because would
No.
you consider keeping ours for a backup offer?
We're
Because what
certainly
happens
going
is,
to yours as a backup offer. We'll probably, our plan is to have a vote tonight. And I think most of the board members, maybe all board members, would like to go with the venture offer. I think many of the reasons have been laid out. And Mike, we've had many discussions, agreement, disagreement. You've said that you'd like to have a meeting with the board. And, a number of members of the board, 3 or 4 board members would be pleased to meet with you later this week, but we want to wait until we did this meeting before we did that.
okay, well, at that point, if there's something I can do to help you, let me know. But I wish you consider my offer and I'll, end the conversation on that.
Thank
But
you.
if
Thank you,
a
Mike.
letter of intent is signed, which is not a legal binding document, I can take care of things from there, and we're talking about 90 days. But if you want to accept the other offer, we'll wait to see if it goes through, and if it doesn't, we will be there when you decide to. If you would like to contact me, John, you always have my number. The board has my number. You certainly have my address, so I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah,
All right.
all
Thanks.
right. Thank you. Any other comments from other owners? You can raise your electronic hand. If there are no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's a board members, yep. Chris,
I move that we accept the offer from venture capital at 13.5 million.
is there a second? Tim seconds it. Any discussion about the motion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor of accepting the venture offer at 13.5? Okay, that's unanimous. 6 votes. All right. Yes, Jen.
Somebody asked, there were a couple of questions. One was about how long this was going to take, I think. And there was another question in the chat relevant to this. I forget.
Yeah, so Jordan, if you could repeat what you said about Venture's offer, about the due diligence period and the period from when we signed the contract to closing.
And Jordan, is the due diligence start with the letter of intent or the signing of the contract?
Signing of the contract, and I would anticipate that the contract would probably take 2 to 3 weeks to execute.
Thank you.
We would get contract within, 3 days of signing an LOI and sending it over to them. And then based on Isaac working with their lawyer, who's Kevin Maloff, Isaac.
Oh, I know him well. He's good. Yeah, that'll work good.
Yeah,
And
so
Jordan
we've
is-
done them faster. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask if that's when the clock starts to tick on the closure, the 120 days.
Correct.
Okay.
On signing that contract. Yep.
That due
And
diligence,
I can
right?
let you guys know Kevin's very reasonable, so we can probably get it done really quick.
Yeah, probably. I'd try to manage expectations a little bit, but yeah, you're right. I mean, he's a deal maker. He doesn't stumble over small fine print.
And did you say it's 120 days from signing the contract to closing? I thought it was less.
Correct. 60.
Oh,
60 for due diligence and then 60 more
For closing.
Close.
to close.
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
Correct.
That's a good, that's not bad, I don't think.
Not on a job, not on a building of this scale. It's very good.
Randy?
yeah. And in the meantime, Jan, consent to sell, how many do we have still to sign?
Okay, so we technically still have 20. It hasn't really moved. However, I have a very credible information from 3 that they're sick, that they have sent it in or are sending it in. One person signed and they actually needed 2 signatures from their household. So there are some bugs like that. When we get those 3 signatures in, which will probably happen in the next day or so, we will be down to 17, which is, I just did the math, 9%, I think, which is pretty amazing. Someone else asked how long we have to get the rest of the signatures. Is it until the end of the due diligence period? I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
But-
We don't know until we see the contract. They're
Okay,
gonna, until we get 100%, they're gonna have a right to get out, and we're not gonna have firm earnest money.
okay.
So, but I think that part of what Jordan and his team, and also hopefully the buyer is gonna do, is try to reach out and help the people that are not willing to move forward to understand what the options are.
Lovely.
And there's a question on the chat. Where on the website is the chart? It's under the announcement, important announcements. And there are 2 charts. There's the original one that we distributed to owners about 2 months ago in August. And the one that's up now is dated, I believe, October 25th, I think is up there. Sally.
Thank you, board. I think you've made a good decision. I will be delivering my signed document tomorrow.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Sally.
You did what I said I said I would do it, and I think you've made a very good choice. I did a little research on Venture myself, and I'm really quite comfortable with them. I think I think we have a good deal. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can we unmute Brian?
I'm trying.
Okay.
Brian, there you go.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I've not asked questions in the past. I've listened to a few meetings. I have an aunt who is an owner of the complex and has not signed to sell. And I'm curious if there's an opportunity for an owner who hasn't signed to sign contingent upon this lawsuit settling for a certain amount of money that would be reasonable. I don't know what that amount is, but that way at least somebody could sign having a little better assurance of what the ultimate outcome is. Curious as to your thoughts on that.
A
Isaac?
difficult question. Isaac, can you take a stab at that?
Yeah, I don't know that it makes sense, or how we would ever be able to agree to have a sale that Venture is going to want to do contingent on us settling a lawsuit for a certain amount on a different issue. I don't know how that works. I mean, we are in an unusual situation, but it seems like the sale of the building and the lawsuits are 2 different things.
And we're working, I mean, we'll be reporting a lot more about the lawsuits in the future. We're working on them. It's just that there are a variety of issues, and we, tonight we're focusing on the sale and the insurance. It's not, we're still talking and dealing with the lawsuits. Don't get me wrong. That's still in process.
I appreciate the responses, and I can understand the position everybody's in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Randy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Isaac, correct me if I'm wrong. But the association will continue on even after the building sells, as long as these lawsuits are still
Correct.
going on. So can we distribute any of the money as long as these lawsuits are still going?
I mean, I think it's a decision we have to make based on what we see our exposure compared to the money that we have on hand.
But we can stop paying fees then, correct?
Yes.
Right. And then
Right.
that will equate to money on hand. There is, based upon the budget, there is money set aside for, obviously, for legal reasons. If we move it to direct sale and we, have funding in the operating account, then we can discuss like how much would we need to cover it, where that wouldn't be an issue and just take a vote on it. So I think from a legal perspective and a building sale perspective, it is two separate things. I don't think, we should hold up one for another.
Sally, you have another question?
No, I don't have a question. I just want to confirm that it's been clear to me for some time that the sale of the building, the direct sale and the lawsuits are in fact two very separate issues.
Yeah.
And it's true, we may be having the funds held up in terms of their being dispersed as a result of the sale, and we don't know what the outcome of the lawsuits is going to end up being. But the other issues of the expenses and the fact that I'm still paying my condo fee.
Mm-hmm.
I can't keep on doing this forever. And so for me, getting the building sold means I get out of the business of having to do that. I can wait for the rest of the money. And I realize that others may not be in a position to be able to wait. I don't want to wait forever for it. I'm getting older, but I understand it's not going to immediately be in my pocket, but these are still very separate issues. And I don't know why it's so difficult for people to understand that. But at any rate, that's just my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Can we unmute Carolyn?
Yeah, Sally, I think you made some great points, and I'm just a little confused by Brian's question, because if Brian is representing, I'm just addressing you, Brian, if you're representing your aunt, it would be incredibly beneficial to her not to have to pay her fees. Or if she happens to be one of the people who hasn't been paying her fees, it's also going to stop the debt that would go against the money that she would get from the sale of the building. So, I agree with, I've been in the legal field for 20 some years. And Sally is perfectly right. We stop the payments, we stop the bleed from us personally, and the money will come to us and it's going to earn interest while it's sitting there. So the best thing to do for everybody is to sign this and get this thing over so we can all move on with our lives and not bankrupt more people or bankrupt our children and grandchildren who are going to have to keep financing this unless we get it sold. That's it.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah, if I could, I don't know if I'm on muted or not. This is Brian again. For the record, I'm in total agreement, I think, with most of you. I think a sale of the building at this point does make perfect sense. Prior to now, though, I think it's fair to say that there was reasons why agreeing was premature for a lot of things. So I think it's not important who my aunt is, but I think you're going to find her be one that agrees to selling as well. So,
Hey,
Thank you, Brian.
thank you for that.
Drop on down anytime at the building and cast your ballot.
Well, hey, look, on this front of the lawsuit, I know it's a totally separate issue, and maybe it's more appropriate to talk about this at a different meeting.
Probably.
But is Isaac able to provide guidance on, some sort of a range that is reasonable to resolve these things?
I cannot provide that. That would be more a question for Julie and Chris with my firm. We can look into coming up with that number. I mean, I think it depends on which lawsuit you're talking about and what they're looking for too.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, we are moving forward with hopefully resolution on the Burnham case, which would be money into the account of the condo association. There are offers to try to settle the Crossferry case. Hopefully that's not going to cost any money for our money in our accounts. And the Porter case, we're hoping to move to mediation, but it's taking time and trouble finding actually a mediator on that We get a mediator and then they find out they can't do it for like 4 months away, 5 months away. So we're
But
working on that.
both sides are agreeing to the mediators.
Yeah. All right, any other questions?
I have not been able to really look at chat. Are there chat questions that are pressing? I see one. Who owns venture capital? Jordan, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah. You sent us a brochure from venture capital. Can I put that on our website?
Yeah, you can definitely put on there. It's three gentlemen that own it: Matt Henderson, Steve Rice, and Robbie Hendricks. They're local Cincinnati guys that own the company, but feel free to share that brochure too. That gives their background, their track record, et cetera.
Okay.
Anything else in chat?
There's a question about, does Tracy's spreadsheet comprehend any of the monies for the lawsuits? And I think the answer to that is no, right, Tracy?
So there's a legal budget. So what is going to wind up happening is the money set aside for legal expenses is flat to what we had budgeted last year. However, if the building doesn't get a direct sale and we go down the path of this partition, which none of us want to do, it would chew into that budget. So there is some monies there, but we need to act to sell the building to reserve those monies, and then we can leverage that for the lawsuits.
Chat question. How many lawsuits are active?
There are 3 of them. There's the Porter lawsuit, which was against the board and Hunt, and is now added TRS and Town Properties. There is the Burnham lawsuit against the owner of 108, and basically is moving towards a settlement with insurance companies that have sued the insurance company also. And there's Crossbury's, which is a question of damage to their unit and selling it. Those are the 3 active and the only 3 active lawsuits I'm aware of.
Okay, another question. Once the building is sold, we also won't have to pay HO6 insurance, property tax. And if you have a mortgage, you won't be paying that either. We might speak to that. I hope I would move if we can, and I'm looking down the road. If we could advance, or not advance, but distribute enough money to pay off a person's mortgage. If in other words, if they have $100,000 mortgage and we sell the building, the mortgage company is going to call that mortgage, of course. They want the money for that. If we can't distribute the money right away, how does that mortgage get paid?
Yeah, realistically, I don't think that any mortgage company is going to allow their mortgage not to be paid out of the sales proceeds to the proportionate share that the owner is entitled to. So they have a lien. The buyer's going to want clear title. If they're underwater, they're probably going to allow for a partial payment and then release it based on the money that the owner would receive. But realistically, they're going to require their mortgages to be paid. And the buyer can't get clear title without the release.
It's important information. Isaac, we should talk more in depth about it.
Yep.
Later this week.
Yeah, so like that was my point. If assuming if it's not if the mortgage isn't underwater, if they don't know more than they're going to receive from the sale, would it be possible to partially distribute the money partially? So at least those people who,
well,
have
like I said, I think the mortgage company is going to require it to be paid off.
Right.
Yeah, we have to have ongoing discussion about this because it's going to get pretty sticky if basically people who have mortgages get paid and people who don't have mortgages don't receive any money. I understand why legally, because the mortgage companies want the money at closing. But this is a new topic that I hadn't considered yet that we're going to have to start getting into. Can we unmute Brian? Brian, fourth time.
Yeah, I'm going to state the obvious. I'm sorry, but I think this is a good example of why there has been some hesitancy for some to sign the consent to sell. It's unknown, very important questions like this one, and there's probably others. And so I think that it should be mission critical to get a total of the 180 units that are owned there. What is the total amount that is owed back in the form of mortgages of the units that are financed?
Well, one, let me say personally that they're very important questions, but I just hope owners like Sally would agree to sign the consent form so we can move forward to getting the money. They're all important questions. So I'm not trying to minimize them, but we have that information. We asked Finney for it. It's public documents. They then figured out over time and again, publicly, when the mortgage was secured by the owner, how much is probably remaining. I also personally put into that spreadsheet the amount of money people owed in arrears. And I also put in that spreadsheet from the earlier payout, and I think it's a greater payout now that Tracy showed us. And I put that amount of how many people were in arrears. And if you add that all together, it's only a small fraction. It's, I believe, less than four people who actually are not going to get clear, have some money in hand if they pay off mortgages and arrears, that the payout will be enough.
If we move quickly.
If we move
Correct.
quickly, that's right.
Correct.
And so, I mean, that it's not a partition. That's direct sale, and direct sale that closes before July 1st, when we have to then pay the next amount of our insurance. So that will automatically take down the reserves, 580,000 or something like that, let alone everybody, as people have said in the chat, that they have to continually paying, let's say for 8 more months, their monthly fee. So I would just hope again that if we sign the contract and we have a time period, that we really need owners to sign the consent to sell form so everybody can get their money.
As Tom Deeds has said several times, and he couldn't be here tonight to say this himself, so I told him I'd say it for him. You'll never get more for your unit than you'll get now. It's not going to get any better.
Otherwise, in the chat, there's some questions and comments about the Porter suit.
Yeah, let's not get into those.
Right, people can read those, and there are a couple suggestions which we can forward to Isaac. He needs them. Yeah.
And we will continually discuss internally the board as well as in board meetings as we make progress on the lawsuits. All right. No other questions? I'd like to motion to adjourn, and the board will meet. I'm sorry we didn't announce that in executive session. Tim?
John, make sure you copy the chat, please.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Copy the chat. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
So-
I move to adjourn.
A second?
I second.
Dan seconds. All those in favor? All right. Thank you very much.